Hello, I'm Judy Selesnik, and I'd like to welcome you to Meet the Candidates, a community education program presented by PAT, Peabody Access Telecommunications. We have invited the 11 primary candidates for the office of Sheriff of Essex County to participate in these interviews, to allow you folks at home to meet the candidates and become familiar with them and their views and priorities as we move forward toward the primary election on Thursday, September 8th, 2016. I am pleased that several of the primary candidates will be with us for interviews. As a bit of information, there are 13 candidates in total, 6 Democrats, William Castro of Methuen, a sergeant in the Essex County Sheriff's Department, Kevin Coppinger of Lynn, Lynn's police chief, Michael Marks of Lynn, current Middleton Jail Superintendent, Edward J. O'Reilly of Wenham, a defense attorney and former Gloucester firefighter, Jerry Robito of Lawrence, retired Middleton Jail Deputy Superintendent, and Paul Russell Jr. of Andover, a former Drug Enforcement Administration agent. 5 Republicans, Kenneth Berg of Danvers, a law enforcement officer, Jeffrey Gallo of Haverhill, a lieutenant in the Essex County Sheriff's Department, James Jajuga Jr. of Methuen, a lieutenant in the Methuen Police Department, Craig Lane of Newburyport, and Ann Manning Martin of Peabody, who is Deputy Superintendent of the Department of Corrections at the Lemuel Shattuck Hospital, and 2 unenrolled candidates, Mark Archer of Bedford, a retired state trooper and current attorney, and Kevin Leach of Manchester by the Sea, a former county commissioner. We have invited the Republican and Democratic primary candidates, since the unenrolled candidates will automatically be on the November 8th final election ballot, together with the winner of the Republican and Democratic primary. I'm pleased to welcome Kevin Coppinger, a Democrat from Lynn and current police chief. Welcome, Chief. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Judy. It's a pleasure to be here.
Please tell us a little bit about yourself, including why you decided to run for this office and the personal and professional qualifications you feel you have that qualify you to be the Sheriff of Essex County.
Sure. Well, first of all, I've been a police officer for 33 years. Started my career in Lynnfield many years ago. I worked there for 3 years. I transferred to Lynn, came up through the ranks, did a little bit of everything, patrol, investigation, administrative. This is my 7th year as chief. I was deputy chief for 14 years before that. So I've experienced law enforcement in a number of ways. Starting way back when I got my education, I got a bachelor's degree in criminal justice through Northeastern University, followed by a master's degree and also in criminal justice through Anna Maria College. Later on in my career, I had a golden opportunity to go to the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia, which is a 3-month executive development program run by the FBI, which really helped me quite a lot in my career. So over those 30 years, I worked with all aspects of the criminal justice system. I know the criminal justice system inside and out, from the federal level, working closely with the United States Attorney, the federal law enforcement partners, whether it's the FBI, drug enforcement agencies, the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, down to the state level, working with the attorney generals, state police, other state agencies, to local police, including Chief Tom Griffin here in Peabody and some of the other local law enforcement agencies. So police work in the last several years has changed. We've become more community-oriented. Partnerships are huge, collaborations. I've experienced those firsthand, being chief and being deputy chief so many years, and I've seen the positive effects that they do to enhancing public safety, making our neighborhoods safer, and giving residents just a much better sense of security in their homes, which is obviously a win-win for everybody. So when you ask me why I want to be sheriff, that's the basis of it. I've had a lot of experience, as I said, in Lynn, and we've had a lot of initiatives and programs that we have put together for our prevention, initiatives for intervention, as well as treatment and rehabilitation on the substance abuse issues that are going on in our society today. But my point being is, it's not police work anymore. You have to work with all these other agencies, including and specifically community groups, to make things better. And I look at the sheriff's office as an entity that still needs to come into this new era of collaborative policing, because I see a lot of assets up there that can be used to come to the table, again, enhancing public safety, making folks feel safer in their neighborhoods and in their homes.
Well, what do you think are the two major issues facing the Essex County Sheriff's Department, and how would you deal with these?
Well, if you think of the sheriff's office as, well, it's a jail, of course, you know, and you have care, custody, and control of the inmates. That's the primary focus of the sheriff's department. But coming from a community perspective, which is where my background is, and the police officer, we're the feeder system for the jails, because police have to arrest the folks before they get in there. Usually arrest them several times before they actually go to Middleton to do a sentence. But we're also the end users. So when those folks come out of Middleton, come back into our communities, the key here is we do not want them to recidivate. So while you have them in jail, we want to make sure we can take every opportunity to provide them with services and programs so they don't recidivate when they come back into our cities and towns. So I think that's number one. So when, in my opinion, when an inmate gets at the jail and he gets to intake, we have to look at exactly what his problem is. And to answer partly number two, the other two things we have that's very common throughout all our communities today is substance abuse and mental illness. We have a lot of folks in our communities that have those maladies, and it's key if we can get them the treatment that they need, hopefully even before they get to Middleton. And that's where we've had a lot of success in Lynn with a lot of initiatives that I've been able to put together, working with some of these social service agencies I meant before. So while they're in jail, I think we need to start programs. They may have to detox, and there are programs up in the jail. I think they can be expanded. I think they can be improved upon. I think, but they also need to follow the individuals when they come back to our communities, particularly if there is a substance abuse or mental illness malady. So you have to have an aftercare program. So you just don't want to let the folks go back into the community, because most inmates are only in there for 6 to 8 months. It's a very small window. So they are coming back, and we want to make sure that they have the services in the communities so they don't relapse. Mm-hmm. So if they have an opiate problem, you don't want them to go back to their old drug dealers or their old neighborhood. If they have a mental illness problem, they want to make sure they have someone that they can go to for care. If they're having a problem with medications or just having a bad day, they want to be able to speak to folks. So if we can do the prevention piece I mentioned before, I think that's a big plus for these folks that might be committing low-grade crimes today. So we can have them do the prevention piece. We're going to reduce the inmate population in Middleton, which I think could be a win-win for everybody. First of all, it's less tax dollars paying for individuals up there. But number two, you're giving those folks a second chance. So as I said before, if they need specific treatment for substance abuse, and I'm talking drugs, alcohol, and as I mentioned before, mental illness, you do that so they're not committing crimes. They get the treatment they need before they commit crimes, keep them out of the criminal justice system where a lot of these folks belong. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not soft on crime. If somebody's out there and they're dealing drugs in our neighborhoods, those folks need to go to jail. I'm sorry, if they're selling drugs to put somebody else in this problem we have with opiates today, they need to go behind bars and they need to serve their time. But there's a lot of people there, I think, that are in that other middle ground where we might be able to give them a second chance and get them the resources.
More like the addicts, basically.
Exactly,
yeah.
Exactly, yes.
So basically what you're saying is that it's not just a jail problem, that it's a community problem, and all the resources have to work together to help solve this issue.
Absolutely. That's why I say, I look at the jail, it's almost like an island, and the rest of the criminal justice system has evolved over the last 10, 20 years. The jail just needs to come in a little bit closer to the mainland now. And we have a lot of programs, as I mentioned before, in Lynn, working with the courts, working with the judges, probation, parole, even defense attorneys. You asked me 20 years ago if a police officer is going to sit down with a defense attorney, to discuss a case, I'd tell you you're crazy. Now we do it regularly because we're all trying to do the same goal. We're all trying to reach for the same goal is, again, public safety, but if there's somebody in there, we can give them a half a chance to go another route besides going to jail. It's a win-win. The individual gets the treatment they want, society's a better place, and we're not increasing our cost at the jail, so we are minimizing the population in Middleton.
Great. What changes or improvements would you consider making to the Sheriff's Department?
There's 4 things I'd like to key in on. First and foremost, I would like to improve the core of the organization. When I say the core, I'm talking about the staff, the employees. That's a tough job, working in the jail. First and foremost, I think we have to increase their training. make sure they're getting the skills they need to do the job, and make sure they have their certifications. You know, being a police officer, we have mandated training every year. We have to go back to school, and it's very similar what the correctional officers need to do. In addition to the training, we need to give them the tools that they need. You know, whether it's as I mentioned before, skills or some type of tools on their duty belts or whatever they have up there, whatever they need to have up there, excuse me. You have that, so if you give them the training, you give them the skills, and you give them the resources, you build confidence. When you build confidence, you build what we call command presence. So they train the police officers this way, and I'm sure a lot of these correctional officers would love to have it too, and some of them probably do. So when you walk into a situation, if you have command presence, you're already trying to de-escalate the situation because you have that stigma about you where you're in charge, and hopefully folks will see that and they will not be aggressive and have a problem. That's number one. Number two, as I mentioned before, we have to work on the opiate problem. As I mentioned, there is detox up there. We need to continue those programs and expand and improve them. And very importantly, we need to have those aftercare programs so when they come back into the community, as I mentioned before, the care is continuing while they're there. Because you don't kick an opiate overdose, an opiate epidemic addiction overnight. It's something that's going to follow that person probably the rest of his or her life. So you want to make sure you have those resources. Number three is improve the reentry program. When they come back to the jail, you have to have services in the community so the folks don't recidivate. It's a 47% recidivism rate after a year.
It's pretty high.
That's high. That's high. And we see it, I've seen people come back and forth like a revolving door sometimes. It's frustrating. So.
And do you think that's because the addiction hasn't been taken care of?
Well, I think it's a number of things. That is a big piece of it, the addiction, and it's not being done. But it's also, sometimes folks come out of the jail, they have nothing when they go back to the community. Think about it. They probably don't have health insurance. They don't have a home. They don't have a job. They don't have job skills. We were lucky enough, last fall we obtained a grant to the Executive Office of Public Safety, just to give you an example of what I'm trying to vision for if I become sheriff. We partnered with an agency called ROCA. They've been very successful in Chelsea, Boston, Springfield, Worcester, and a few other communities. What ROCA does is they'll work with the individuals leaving Middleton, the 18 to 24-year-old age bracket, which is key. Those are the males that are really doing a lot of our crime today. So they'll come out, and they have very strict guidelines. So if you're going to join the ROCA program, you've got to abide by their regulations, so to speak. And they'll give you job skills. They'll get you a job. But what I like about what ROCA does is they'll take the Lynn inmates and they'll give them a job in maybe Chelsea or Boston. And the beauty about that is they're out of their local environment. They're out of their comfort zone. So they don't know where the drug dealers are over there. They don't know where their old buddies are. So they're in another environment. ROCA will make sure they're at work. They don't show up. ROCA's banging on the door at 9:05 saying, where are you? You were supposed to be in work 5 minutes ago. And that's good. It's somebody just trying to help them. So we need to do that. And the fourth piece of it that I really want to do, moving up into the Sheriff's Department, is since day one when I got into this campaign, I vowed I would not take any political donations from any police officer that I currently work with in Lynn, nor any employee of the Essex County Sheriff's Department. What I believe in is if people who are going to get hired or be assigned to special units or get a promotion, those areas should be done basically on merit and qualifications, not on political donations. You have to separate the two. I just think it's an ugly thing to have hanging out there. If you're going to put folks into positions of responsibility, again, it should be on qualifications and merits, and that would make the organization more professional, which is what I would like to see it done.
Interesting outlook on campaign contributions and donations. Why do you think people should vote for you for sheriff?
Well, if you look at the qualifications of the role of sheriff, it's not just being a correctional officer. First of all, you have to have somebody that has experience with budgets. Again, you've heard my tenure as a chief and as a deputy chief. I've done, the budget up in the Essex County Sheriff's Department is $54 million. I've run multi-million-dollar budgets for 7 years with my signature on it, and again, 14 years before that as a deputy chief. I know how to spend taxpayers' money wisely, efficiently, and effectively. I've never gone over my budget. That's key. That's a big organization. That's number one. Number two, you have to have skills dealing with employees, employee unions, personnel, human resources issues. I've had that in Lynn. We've had over 200 employees. I've negotiated 7. I'm actually in my 7th contract now. Worked with unions very extensively. We tend to work things out. I've had very few grievances during my tenure. We don't always agree, but we try to get the job done. I'll give my union credit, or their union. I'm not in the union, obviously. They've been good. When they come to the table, we look to see what's for the best of the organization, not for the individuals, and we've been able to work that out. Then you need somebody with the law enforcement skills, as I mentioned before. the sheriff's office is part of the criminal justice system. It's not that island anymore. So you need somebody with the experience and the skills to bring them to the table with all these other little meetings. So we're doing looking at the goal, collective goal of all these agencies, not just individual goals for the individual partners. So I think I have those skills here. And you need somebody with community engagement skills. I've had extensive experience over the last 20-something years engaging the community, going to community meetings, listening to what the residents want and what the problems are in their community. And as I said, they're key. Number one, it's their tax dollars that we're spending. And number two, it's their, as I said before, they want to feel safe in their homes. They don't want to worry about somebody breaking in or grabbing their pocketbook or robbing the convenience store down the street. You have to work together. And a lot of those folks in these neighborhoods have some great ideas. You know, I'm a cop. I've been a cop by trade for 33 years. Never would I tell you I know everything. But I've learned a lot from dealing with the public, and it's helping my career a lot. And I think it's helped in Lynn, in my instance, it's helped the city of Lynn improve quite a bit.
Well, what else would you like the folks at home who are watching this and deciding for whom to vote, what would you like them to know about you?
I would just ask that they do their homework. There are a lot of candidates in this race. They can go, they can check the individuals' websites, they can look at the City of Lynn. We have a website and a Facebook page. Do their homework, but think about the job in its entirety. It's not just, as I said before, somebody that's going to be able to just guard a prisoner. There's a big job up there. It's a big entity. It's 650 employees, $54 million. You have to have somebody in there with the background and the skills to run it. It's a business. And I do think I bring that to the table, as I said before. I think my qualifications and my education and just what a lot of the programs, we didn't get into too many of the programs here this afternoon, but a lot of the programs we have, even we didn't talk about prevention, but if I have 2 minutes, I'll talk about prevention. We have another program in Lynn now. We just partnered up with District Attorney John Blodgett. Started in January. We aimed it at our middle school kids who were really at risk. There might be some drugs in the home, or a relative may have an addiction problem. But we did an after-school program, 2 days a week. We have 3 police officers there, 3 school teachers, and some folks who are certified clinicians in the substance abuse and mental health area. We bring the kids in right after school. You do homework with them. We're kind of mentoring the kids, do homework with them about a half an hour. Then they do an evidence-based curriculum, learning how to make good decision skills, whether it's dating, bullying, substance abuse, whatever it might be at that middle school, adolescent age. Just trying to teach them good decision-making skills. Then we take them in the gym. Might play some pick-up basketball, maybe a wiffle ball game, something to burn off the energy. Then we feed them, have a nice dinner together, and then we go back in the gym.
Always an important part.
And it's great because you're teaching these kids, you know, again, life skills to be successful. It's also breaking down the barriers between the police officers and youth, so they don't see us as just the people with the badge of the guns. They're seeing us as individuals that we can converse with and help each other. And it's providing society with the next generation of coming out who are going to be good, productive citizens, and hopefully they might be our next police officers or our next lawyers or judges or mayors or whatever it may be. We have a lot of little programs like that in Lynn that have been chipping away at the problems we've seen over the last 20 years. And we're making some success. Crime in Lynn is down 10% over the last 5 years. We've been very lucky.
Excellent.
We used to have a gang problem. We partnered up with our other agencies. We had 1,300 gang members 4 or 5 years ago. We have about 300 now. We really dropped that quite a bit. So I guess my point being is I consider myself a problem solver, an innovator. I like to think outside the box, but I like to get as much information about a problem when I see it by asking other resources. So as I said before, I don't know it all, but I think I'm good enough. I've developed the skills over my career. I can ask the people who know more about situations than I do. Then we all put it together, come up with our best option, and then put a plan in place to hopefully improve public safety.
Well, great answer, and I want to thank you very much for the interview and wish you very good luck, Chief, in the upcoming Democratic primary.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Appreciate it.
I'm pleased to welcome Michael Marks, a Democrat from Lynn who is the current Middleton Jail Superintendent. Welcome, Michael. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me, Judy.
My pleasure. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, including why you decided to run for this office and the personal and professional qualifications you feel you have that qualify you to be the Sheriff of Essex County.
I'm a Democrat from Lynn. I've born and raised in Lynn, been there my whole life, and I'm also a 28-year veteran of the Essex County Sheriff's Department. I started as a correctional officer in 1988 at the Salem Jail. I worked for a short period of time at the Lawrence pre-release center up on 495 in Lawrence called the Farm. And then in 1991, we moved to the Middleton facility, and I've been there ever since. I worked my way through the Sheriff's Department to where the point that in 2003, the current sheriff promoted me to superintendent of the correctional facility in Middleton. For 13 years, I've been the superintendent there, the number 3 person in the Sheriff's Department. My facility is accredited by the American Correctional Association. We've been accredited since 2003. And in February, when the sheriff told us he wasn't going to run again, I just thought it was a natural progression for me in my career to make sure that someone was in office to continue the good work that we've been doing and build on that for the future.
That's great. What do you think are the 2 major issues facing the Essex County Sheriff's Department, and how will you deal with these issues?
Well, I think right now the most difficult issue is the substance abuse issue and more importantly, the opioid crisis that's going on right now. Again, as I said, I'm running because I want to continue the good work that we do in the Sheriff's Department. And one of the things that we've done to try to assist in that opioid crisis, in the part that the Sheriff's Department could take part in, is in December of 2015, we opened a pretrial detox unit. We worked with probation, with the district attorney's office, with the courts, and even with the defense attorneys to try to get referrals to us for young men that had substance abuse issues, and because of those issues, they resorted to criminal activity. So they are incarcerated, however, we keep them separate from the rest of the facility, and we deal with the detox, chemical detox issue first. We get them healthy. And then once they're healthy, we get them involved in group counseling, individual counseling, and the most important piece of that is an individual release plan where we work with community partners, with their families, and with the courts to give them a plan to move forward and stay sober. So a lot of those plans consist of the person going home to their family because they still have support. A lot of the people that are addicts don't have support from their families. So we have to look for a halfway house or a sober house for them to go to. So when they go back to court, normally around 28 days later, we have somebody, a clinician, go with them to court, review the plan with the judge, and if the judge approves it, then they move on with that plan. If they don't approve it and they think the person needs a little bit more time, then they go up to the reentry facility up in Lawrence, and we work with them further until that plan can take place. So that now when they're out in the community, they have support. They have an AA sponsor, an NA sponsor. They have mental health counseling, because a lot of the mental health issues, which is the second major issue that we're dealing with right now, are mental health issues and co-occurring disorders. So people that should be on mental health meds are self-medicating with illicit drugs, opioids, alcohol, things of that nature. So we're working again with community partners to build support in the community. So if we have an inmate, and we have a large percentage of our inmates have mental health issues, when they leave the facility with a certain amount of medication with them so that they're not going back out and self-medicating because they don't have their meds. And we also will hook them up with maybe Leahy Behavioral Health or Lynn Community Health Center so that they can have an appointment to continue with those mental health meds so that they don't divert back to illicit drugs. And a major way that we're doing that is that when inmates used to come into the jail, if they were on mass health, it would immediately be terminated. And once they're released,
The mass health would be terminated?
mass health would be terminated. And once they're released, they'd have to work to get back on mass health. So they had no way of paying for their meds. Now it's suspended instead of terminated. So we can turn it right back on when they're being released through the virtual gateway system so that they leave with meds in their hand and insurance so that they can go to their healthcare provider and continue with those meds. So to me, those are the two largest issues that we're dealing with. And we think that if we can get a handle on the addiction issue, maybe those people won't go back to criminal activity and come back to jail. And that's really the same thing for the mental health issues too. They need to be leveled out with their meds so that they don't go and practice criminal behavior.
So basically what you're saying is that it's both the opioids and or the drug addiction and the mental health issues that are the two things that you think are the most serious?
I would say yes.
Okay. What changes and/or improvements would you consider making to the Sheriff's Department?
Well, I've said all along that I don't believe that we need to make wholesale changes to the Essex County Sheriff's Department. I think that we've modeled ourselves through some really good sheriff's departments. Hampden County Sheriff's Department out in the western part of the state. Mike Ash is a sheriff. He's retiring after 42 years on the job. He's really been progressive, and we've kind of modeled our department after theirs. And so we have a good idea of, certainly I have a good idea of where corrections has been. I know where we are now, but I also know what the goal is in the future. And I think the main issue for us right now is to develop these community partners so that these men and women do have support once we don't have supervision over them anymore. So ideally for us, what we like to do is they come to the Middleton facility for the men, then we can step them down to the pre-release center in Lawrence. They can work on the property. We get used to them. We can send them out on community service, and they're on the sides of the highway picking up trash, or they may be in a city hall painting an office, those types of things, and then get them a job. And then we drive them to work every day. We pick them up after work every day. We put their paycheck in the bank for them. We don't take a dime from them. We put it in the bank for them. We give them some money so that they can buy things out of the vending machines and such, so that when they leave, they have some money. Ideally, what we'd like to do is at the end of their sentence, put them on an electronic monitoring device so that they can go home or to a halfway house or a sober house, which we have affiliations with many, so that we still have that supervision, because I think that's very important to have post-release supervision. They're actually entrenched in the community, but we still have some say over what they can and can't do. But then after that, when that bracelet comes off and they don't have supervision, we want to try to make sure there's another level for them. And that's the goal for my administration, would be to continue to build that next level. So when these men and women go home and we're not part of their lives anymore, that somebody else is, that can take care of them. Whether it's ROCA, which it's a wonderful agency out of Chelsea. They just moved in to do some work in Lynn. They focus on the 18 to 24-year-olds that are high-risk individuals, gang affiliations, things like that, to try to get them away from their gangs and with family. A lot of kids think the gangs are their families. So if we can build community partners that kind of replace that gang, we think that they'll do better. So that's the goal of the next step for corrections. And corrections has grown over the years, but the next step is to try to take some of the burden off the budget that we have by having these community partners take over after they leave supervision.
Interesting. Sounds like there are supports that are just building out there.
Yes, yes. Every day we have agencies that come and they're interested in doing work with us, partnering for grant money, things of that nature. So I think it's really going well, but we need to take that next step to try to reduce our numbers in the facility, to incarcerate less, and use diversionary programs more, and create these community partners that will support these men and women for the rest of their lives, so they don't come back to us.
And are you talking mostly about the younger people who you said 18 to 24?
That's ROCA's focus. UTEC is another program that's up in Lowell, and their focus is the 18 to 24-year-old kind of inner city gang member type people, but there are other community partners that we utilize to assist with all ages that are released.
Why do you think people should vote for you for sheriff?
Well, again, I've been doing the work. I've been part of the team that's built the Sheriff's Department to what it is today. I'm not a politician. I'm a worker. I like to make sure that these men and women get the services they need so that they can go back out to the communities. I'm very active in Lynn as a coach in the youth sports programs in Lynn. I coached kids 20 years ago that I see today that who have kind of taken a left instead of going straight, and they've come to Middleton. And I see them. I actually saw one at the Hathaway School graduation for preschool last week, who's been out for an extended period of time, who told me that we helped him immensely get himself back on the right track. So I think that just my reputation in terms of what I do, and that the fact that I'm going to go to work tomorrow and do it again, and that after 28 years invested in the department, my reason for running is to continue that investment and make sure that the Sheriff's Department moves forward. So I would hope that on September 8th I could earn people's support and get their vote.
Great. What else would you like to tell the folks watching this at home and deciding for whom they will vote?
I guess what I would say is, again, I'm very passionate about the work that I do. We have a fantastic team of management staff. We have a great group of correctional officers. We've come a long way in the hiring process of how we hire correctional officers. We're not looking for big muscle guys. We're looking for people that can talk to inmates, that can kind of use verbal judo. We're not looking, corrections is going to a de-escalation phase, and that's what we're looking for. So our hiring process is fantastic. I want to make sure that continues, and I want to make sure that the staff at the Essex County Sheriff's Department has somebody leading them that has been there and that wants to come to work every day and do the right thing.
Great. Well, I want to thank you very much, Michael, and wish you good luck in the Democratic primary.
Thank you very much for having me, Judy. Thank you.
I'm pleased to welcome Edward J. O'Reilly, a Democrat from Wenham, a criminal defense attorney from Gloucester, and former Gloucester firefighter. Good evening, Ed. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Judy.
So please tell us a little bit about yourself, including why you decided to run for this office and the personal and professional qualifications you feel you have that qualify you to be the Sheriff of Essex County.
All right, Judy, I think I'll start with why I began this race for sheriff. I've been involved with people with substance abuse problems for 34 years. I've been a criminal defense attorney. I myself have been in recovery for 27 years. It's part of my fabric of my life. And I have found in my experience that about 85 to 90% of the people that are sentenced to the House of Correction have some relationship to drugs and alcohol abuse. So that was really what was driving me when I decided to run. As a criminal defense attorney for 34 years, I have the experience inside the court system. I'm the only candidate that actually has the experience with sentencing and the entire criminal justice system. I have an overview of it and experience in it. I have a lot of compassion, I guess you'd say, for people with addiction problems. And now with the opioid epidemic, it's essential that someone that's in the Sheriff's Department and in the Sheriff's Office actually has a grasp of what addiction is all about. And I think I bring that to the table. I graduated from Watertown High School. I was a public school kid. I worked in a factory after high school so I could pay for college. I got into UMass and Amherst. I graduated in 3.5 years. I have a legal studies degree. I graduated magna cum laude from UMass Amherst. And then after that, I volunteered at Wounded Knee, did some other things for a year, and then I worked in for the Department of Corrections. I worked in a state prison. I worked at Norfolk State Prison, where 1/3 of the guys in my unit were lifers. I then applied to law school and got into New England School of Law at night. In my second year that I worked for the Department of Corrections, I was with the Park Drive Pre-Release Center. I helped open that center in Boston, which was all about community corrections. And I was going to law school at night from 6 to 10 at night, and then I'd go down the street to Park Drive Pre-Release Center, and I worked there from 11 to 7. Then I became a firefighter in Watertown. I actually was a firefighter in Amherst when I was at UMass for the last year. I was a call firefighter, but I joined my father, who was chief of the department at the time in Watertown, my 3 uncles, and followed in the footsteps of my grandfather and my father and became a firefighter. I was there for 3 years until my father laid me off. And there were 2 things my father said to me. One is, this is the last of the romantic jobs. You're always helping someone. And that's the environment I grew up in my family. My aunt worked for Tip O'Neill, and I grew up in a family of compassionate people, firefighters throughout my family. And the other thing my father told me is, if I did you any favors in this job, I wouldn't be doing you any favors. And with that, he laid me off, with 15 other firefighters with Proposition 2.5. I did some commercial lobstering, and eventually I transferred to the Gloucester Fire Department, and I was on the Gloucester Fire Department when I took the bar exam. I've been a criminal defense lawyer for 34 years, and I've been defending people and working with people with substance abuse problems for that entire period. I was on the Gloucester School Committee. I was a Gloucester City Councilor. I have a record of public service, and I think my background in substance abuse is really important at this time when we're dealing with a job that really has to do with returning people to the community after being treated and hopefully succeed in the community when they're released.
Well, what do you think are the 2 major issues facing the Essex County Sheriff's Department, and how will you deal with these issues?
Well, I think probably the first issue is changing the culture. I don't accept any donations from any family members or employees of the Sheriff's Department. I think that needs to stop. I think changing the culture in the management level is important. I also would be accentuating programs, more programs. I think Sheriff Cousins has done a really fine job with treatment programs, but I want to expand upon them. And I have a 5-point platform. It's based on prevention, intervention. I'm the only person that's running who has embraced the Angel program in Gloucester, which is really based upon treatment upon demand. And treatment upon demand, to me, is the most important part of treatment, because a person can't really recover unless they have some inkling they have a problem. So a person that wants treatment should have treatment upon demand, because that's the only way that they can really recover, is if they have the attitude that they want to recover and they realize they have a problem. Third part of my platform is bringing, really looking at who is in the House of Correction, the people that are in the House of Correction. There's a new survey that just came out, a new survey that summarizes perhaps as many as 50% of the population, as much as 50% of the population in the House of Correction have mental illness, and they might be self-medicating, or the mental illness is part of the criminal behavior. And I think that really needs to be analyzed from the moment someone comes in. They need to have a mental examination, a physical examination, and then job skills examination. Because the moment a person comes into the jail is the moment they should start treatment. 100% of the people in the House of Correction get out, and 85 to 90% are there because of some relationship to drugs and alcohol. So treatment is really important to me. Also, women. Women are not treated the same as men in the Essex County, under the Essex County Sheriff's Department. Sheriff Cousins is doing a good job. He's just opened, I think actually today is the opening day for the women's detox program to equal the men's. But there's still women being housed at Framingham State Prison, and I'm really concerned with that women need to have equal access to programs. So the mental illness part of incarceration is a real concern to me. Women having the same treatment options and the same job skills, or equal job skill training while they're incarcerated, is really important to me. And I think the women, most of the women that are in the House of Correction under the Sheriff's Department are there because of addiction problems, and a lot of them are mothers, and it's just there's something a little bit more sad about that, the women that are in the Sheriff's Department custody, and I want to do something about that. And then my fourth part of my platform is the aftercare, and what do we do to step people down from jail? And I'm a real firm believer in tight reins, but also treatment in stepping people into halfway houses. And the fifth part of my platform is advocacy, advocating for an addiction treatment center in Essex County. And Essex County, if you ask to have someone committed under under Chapter 123, Section 15, because they're a danger to themselves or others because of alcohol or drug addiction. They're sent to Bridgewater or Taunton or Brockton or New Bedford. I want to have an addiction treatment center here in Essex County. I know myself, if I had a loved one who was had a problem with drugs and alcohol, I'd want to be able to have them sent to someplace close. The other part of Chapter 123, Section 15 is once a person is released, and it's a civil commitment under that chapter and section because they're a danger to themselves or others, what I want to make sure is that there's aftercare. Right now, people are just released. There's no follow-through under that chapter and section. So advocacy under Chapter 123 and for mental illness is a big part of my candidacy also.
Well, I know you've already answered this question a little bit in your last response, but what changes or improvements would you consider making into the Sheriff's Department?
Well, I think first of all is changing the culture in the mid to upper management level, that we have people that understand addiction, people that are committed to treatment, and also to get the politics out of the Sheriff's Department. I think that's a really important part of changing. I think that's right at the top of my list, changing the culture. And then everything else I've talked about so far, which I think women and mental illness, women having the same treatment and mental illness being detected and being treated, and people being diverted away from jails, and also people being diverted away from incarceration and into halfway houses and having GPS put on them and maybe in drug testing. It's really important, but I don't believe that people should be incarcerated for long periods of time because of a disease. I'm probably one of the few candidates that really, truly believes that addiction is a disease and should be treated as a disease and not as a crime.
Ed, why do you think people should vote for you for sheriff?
Well, I think the choice is really clear. I'm the only person that's running for sheriff that comes from a treatment background. It comes from the entire court system, that understands the entire court and criminal justice system. Every other candidate's from the law enforcement side. I've worked in the prisons. I understand what it's like to work in prison. I work with 1/3 of the people, as I said, well, life is in my unit. But my big focus in what's been my whole adult life practically has been on addiction and alcoholism. And that's what I bring to the table. If people want the same old type policies, then they would vote for someone else. But I'm actually bringing a new wave of treatment to the Sheriff's Department, a new way of thinking, and I think that's what differentiates me from the rest of the candidates.
Okay. What else would you like to tell the folks watching this at home in deciding for whom they will vote?
Well, I just ask people to really look at the candidates, do the research on the candidates. There's the Office of Campaign and Political Finance, so people can go to the website and see who the candidates have donated to. They can also see whether or not they voted Republican or Democrat or whatever. Not that it's necessarily a Republican-Democratic race, but there are people in this race that are more Republican than Democrat. It just goes to the credibility of what people are saying. So I'm asking people to vote. My best asset is an educated voter, just as an educated consumer is the best asset to a company that's doing good business. So I just ask people to really look at the candidates and ask questions and to be involved. This is an important job. It's an important job that a lot of people overlook, and even one candidate's calling it archaic. I have a new way of thinking about the Sheriff's Office, to be involved with communities and community action programs. With the whole thing with prevention is working with community programs and community organizations to prevent crime and then to divert people from the jails. That's my whole focus, and I think the Sheriff's Office is really, it's a good conduit for change, and I see it as being that way. And at this time with the opioid epidemic, I see the Sheriff's Office as being a proactive organization, and that's what I want to bring to the table with the Sheriff's Department.
Well, I want to thank you very much for this interview, and I want to wish you good luck in the primary.
Thank you very much, Judy. Nice to be here.
Nice to see you, Ed.
Thank you.
I'm pleased to welcome Jerry Robito, a Democrat from Lawrence, a retired Middleton Jail Deputy Superintendent. Hi, Jerry.
Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, including why you decided to run for this office and the personal and professional qualifications you have that make you feel qualified to be the Sheriff of Essex County.
Okay. I started my career in 1975 at the Lawrence Jail. Back in the Lawrence Jail, the situation was a little different than it is today, where we had no radios, no response teams. We didn't have an abundance of officers that worked, so back then you had to really learn how to talk to inmates. So I worked there till about 85, then I went on to transportation. Got a job in transportation going all over the state, different police departments, hospitals, jails, transporting. In 91, the new jail opened up in Middleton. I got promoted to captain. I oversaw the recreation department where inmates would come and work out in the gym. I put a schedule together, making it possible for the entire jail to come to the gym to play basketball or whatever it may be, lifting weights. And about 2000, I transferred to the farm, and that was a kind of interesting job. I ran work release. And in that job, I got inmates jobs in the communities. I would go out to different communities, different industrial parks and so forth and so on, and sell the product. The product is why it would be a good investment bringing inmates in to work in the communities. But what I also found out, excuse me, I have allergies, I'm taking medication for it, is that a lot of companies wanted inmates that were marketable, that had job skills. 70% of inmates that come to jail have 7th grade educations. 90% of them have no qualifications whatsoever. They have drug problems, so when they come to jail at the present state, they go into drug programs. They also take a GED, which is fine, which is nice, but unfortunately, that's not enough to help these kids when they get out of jail. Our job is to make them so they don't come back to jail. We have to make them marketable, number one. How do we make them marketable? We got to give them trades. Many companies have told me on a regular basis, these kids need trades. We need trades. So trades is number one. Number two, we certainly have to have an aftercare program once they get released. A lot of people don't know, which I do, because working in the jail for 34 years, you hear a lot of stories. I've dealt with hundreds and hundreds of inmates. When they get out, it's a transition. It's a strange transition. They feel uncomfortable. They don't feel wanted. They don't know where they're going. We need a resource center, an aftercare center, where they can go to on a regular basis so we can keep their heads focused on where they need to go. So I did that program for 2 or 3 years. I then got another promotion. I came back to Middleton, and I was the shift commander of the second shift at Middleton, responsible for the care, custody, and control of 1,200 inmates and 300 officers. My responsibility obviously was to make sure that the inmates were treated fairly, the programs were in place, officer safety. I dealt with lawyers, I dealt with doctors, I dealt with a multitude of different agencies that would call on their clients. So I had a lot of interaction with the outside as well. In 2004, I got promoted, and I was the deputy superintendent in charge of all of housing. So I was responsible for, again, about 1,200 inmates and well over 300 officers. So it's basically the same job, but on a larger scale. I have a clear understanding of inmates. I know what they're all about. If I walk through the door on day one, I know the strengths and weaknesses of all the staff. Very important. When you're working in a jail, you can't have someone come in and it be an experiment and them say, well, I don't really know the job, but who's in charge? What do we do? Who's next in charge? I know everyone in a high position. I know their strengths and weaknesses and what needs to be done. I don't know if that answers the question.
It does. And why did you want to run for sheriff?
I left the department in 2009. A lot of people from the department kept in touch with me. Started to hear different things that were going on. They've had multiple suicides at the jail. They actually had an inmate transferred to the farm, and most people won't understand this, but he was considered a pretrial inmate. He was arrested in Lynn. The judge put a no bail. No bail means he doesn't want him leaving the jail. This inmate was transferred to the farm, gross negligence in regards to security, to the farm the next day. So you got an inmate down there for domestic assault on a female at the farm, escapes the next day, goes back to Lynn, and fortunately, he didn't get out and get the victim. So things like that have been going on a regular basis. You have a female inmate, officer, excuse me, a female officer that works at the jail, ends up having a relationship with an inmate, brings a cell phone into the inmate, brings drugs into the inmate. What happens, instead of her being charged to send a message to the officers, we don't tolerate, we have zero tolerance for this, this woman was allowed to resign. Unacceptable. So I realized, you know what, someone needs to come in there that knows the security, what needs to be done, and put things back where they need to be. The safety of the officers, the safety of the public, very important. The revolving door of inmates coming and going has to stop, because that revolving door affects the taxpayers that suffer the consequences. The inmates that keep coming back to jail, it affects the taxpayers because they break into their houses. Those are the ones that are subjected to this. So I feel as though with my 34 years of experience, I can come in there and make it the way it should be. Care, custody, control, be very strict, and be very cautious about who's down the farm.
What do you think are the two major issues facing the Essex County Sheriff's Department, and how will you deal with those issues? Are those some of the issues you've just mentioned?
Well, the opiate problem is number one. Okay, you don't put a drug addict in jail, put him in a program, keep him in jail for 2 years, and then when his sentence expires, you send him out the door, and he's done.
Are you talking about putting him in a program in jail?
They're in a program in jail, but the problem is that's not enough. They need a program when they get out of jail. They need someplace to go. Okay, there's not enough aftercare programs in place, and I'll give you a good example. Last week, I had the opportunity to go to a homeless shelter. I walked in, and to my surprise, there happened to be 2 ex-inmates in there that I had in Middleton. One of them did 5 years. He did 4 years up in Walpole. His last year, he was down the farm. Went down the farm, was in a program, no job, no place to live. He ends up under the bridge again. The second guy, he did 2 years in Middleton, was released to the street with no place to live, no money, no job. Unacceptable, unacceptable.
And the second thing that you would do, what kind of change or improvement?
And the second thing I would do is,
Sorry, I asked you what you thought were the two major issues.
opiate problem is number one. Number two is making these guys more marketable, so when they get out, they can have a fair shot, get a job in society, and possibly do the right thing. I had a guy, when I was on work release, I bumped into him 2 weeks ago. I got him a job 15 years ago at a black tie limo. It's a limousine service, cleaning limos. He's been there for 15 years. He's been clean, doing the right thing. That made me feel happy. Now, if I send 10 guys out into the community and get them 10 jobs, am I going to save all 10? No. But if we can work hard at saving 3 or 4, we're doing something.
Okay, well, what changes or improvements would you consider making to the Sheriff's Department?
Well, the first thing I do is we wouldn't send pre-release inmates to the farm. Pre-release inmates are inmates that police departments arrest them today, come to jail, and a handful of them go to the farm the next day. These are inmates that are fresh off the street, that are still on drugs, it's still in the system, their mindset is still street-minded. The farm is an open concept. There's no security down the farm. Okay, the way it used to be is the farm used to be a merit system. You go to Middleton, you get sentenced. You become a model inmate, then you work your way to the farm. And then once you're down the farm, as a reward, then we get your job. But now it's reversed. They're actually sending inmates down the farm that just got arrested. That would stop. That would stop immediately. It's unacceptable. The other thing I would stop is, if we're talking about drugs and alcohol, you don't take an inmate and put him give him a job in a restaurant where there's alcohol. There's at least been in the last 2 years, there's been at least 10 inmates that have been picked up at these restaurants for going downstairs drinking, and they were blind drunk. Unacceptable. It's not conducive for rehabilitation. That would stop.
Okay. Why do you think people should vote for you for sheriff?
Because of my years of experience in the jail, the positions I held, I'm well-rounded. I understand the mindset. I know what needs to be done to get these guys from coming back to jail. And more importantly, I know what needs to be done for the safety of the officers that are working there. There's a multitude of officers that are in positions that they've been getting hurt on a regular basis because of things that are going on inside. So it's a threefold. The public first, safety, care, custody, and control of inmates, and the safety of the officers. And I've had 34 years in the job, not somewhere else on a police department, in the jail, in this very county. So that's what I bring to the table.
Okay. Well, what else would you like to, we're sort of winding down now, so what else would you like to tell the folks who are watching right now about yourself?
About myself. Well, I consider myself a team player. I owned a karate school for 28 years, and I taught thousands and thousands of kids. And what's very important is when you get kids, discipline is a very important part of life. The discipline will keep these kids on the right track. If you don't have discipline, you won't have any direction. So that's one thing about me. Team building. My karate school, we had team building. We worked as a team. Okay, so I bring my team building from my 28 years of service from the Sheriff's Department, from my karate school, bring it into the Sheriff's Department. And because the one thing you have to do is you have to have people at work, especially in an environment like a jail, these people have to be happy about the surroundings. And I feel as though that's what I have to offer, that additional part to it, is I can offer that to them, as well as the fact that I was an officer and I experienced the things that they go through on a daily basis dealing with inmates.
Well, that's great. A lot of information.
Thank you.
And I wish you good luck in the primary.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I'm pleased to welcome Paul Russell, a Democrat from Andover, a former Drug Enforcement Administration agent. Welcome, Paul. Nice to meet you.
Pleasure. How are you?
Please tell us a little bit about yourself, including why you decided to run for this office and the personal and professional qualifications you feel you have that qualify you to be the Sheriff of Essex County.
Well, my background is that I grew up in Malden. Those are 4 children. My mother and father grew up in a housing development in Malden and went through the Malden Public Schools. And from there, I got admitted to the University of Massachusetts in Boston, where I received my bachelor's of arts in history. During that same time, I was appointed to the Malden Fire Department as his first African-American firefighter. And while I was there part-time, I got my master's degree at Boston State College. And during that same time also, I was also working part-time as a United States Customs Inspector. Upon graduation and receiving my master's, I sought and got an appointment with the Drug Enforcement Administration as a special agent. And from there, I was assigned, after leaving the academy, I was assigned to the Washington Field office, where I worked in Baltimore and Washington, Virginia, and surrounding areas. I was there approximately from 1983 to 1990, 91. And my career was continued, had blossomed, and I was transferred back to New England to help in reference to the surge of drug use and abuse at that particular time during the early 90s. And my tenure was so successful, I ended up staying in New England, and I worked in all 6 states, including parts of New York, New Jersey, doing various major and minor drug investigations, working with the state, local municipalities, various federal agents, and I was quite successful at that. And in 2011, due to the mandatory age requirement, I had to retire. Retired in 2011 successfully, receiving all kinds of awards and accolades. And from there, been married, live in the town of Andover, a wife who was a pharmacist, and the VA, set of twins, Paul and Pauline, which are in college, University of Maryland, Norwich University. And since my retirement, I've been working, doing some civic organizations and some work in the community with Rotary and generally and within my church. And noticed the sudden surge in heroin and use and abuse in our community. In fact, Andover, 2015, we had lost almost 11 people 11 people drug overdoses, ranging from age 16 to age 55. So this kind of resurged my interest in wanting to do more, get more involved. My research into the Essex County Sheriff's Department, the positions, and we're finding there's a real repeat offender rate going on, and the issues that were very, very discerning, disheartening. The addiction rate, the addiction rates were really excelling, and also the repeat. The people, rehabilitation wasn't seen to be working. I've talked to some people who've been in and out of programs 5, 6 times. In one case, individual was in rehab about 16, 17 times. So the primary reason why I'm running for Essex County Sheriff is I believe I bring all these skills in my background, both in personally and professionally. My wife and I, we have lost members in our family for heroin use and abuse. So through my professional and personal life, I bring to the table these skills and experiences that are relevant in particular times. Probably 99% of crime that's being committed in Essex County, and probably even Massachusetts, is related to drug or drug-related incidences. So we have to address the issue of addiction.
You're getting to my next question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. But that was a very thorough answer as to your background and your experience and why you feel that you're qualified. What do you think are the 2 major issues facing the Essex County Sheriff's Department, and how will you deal with these issues?
Well, I think the primary issue the Essex Sheriff's Department has been basically that the Sheriff's Department has not been a proper filter in reference to addressing the issues of why these individuals are coming through the system. It's just continuous. We have to get to a point that's saying, listen, if you're addicted and you have problems, issues, we have to address it so you won't come back here again.
So you're talking about opioid addiction?
Opioid addiction, even alcoholism. Alcohol to people don't really utilize alcohol because of its availability and it's cheap. It's still the #1 abused
And
legal abused drug in our society. In reference to opioid and heroin abuse and everything else, the numbers are continuously creeping. A lot of it is because heroin is cheap. It's highly purity levels are very, very high, and it's becoming to the point now that it's almost becoming socially acceptable, or it's like people are like, it's something that we have to really keep our foot on the gas to keep people aware of the short and long-term dangers of drug use and abuse. When I first started as a drug agent, the street level purity level of heroin was maybe 2 to 3%. And when I left the agency in 2011, it was up to 95% pure street level, purity level. So it's something that once someone tries something once, it's more than likely you're going to be addictive, chasing that same high. And part of my platform, and I believe, is education information. And I think that if you inform individuals of the downside of experimenting with drugs, I think information is empowering. A lot of people, and I'm not only for young people, but I'm also going for families, adults, everyone, to say, listen, you'll try this stuff is dangerous. And once you start getting addicted, it's just continually spiraling down to sometimes even their own demise and death. So part of the reason why I'm running is I want to use the Sheriff's Department as a filter, as also a basis for a springboard where I can vocally be an advocate both on the federal and state level in reference to the use and abuse of heroin and heroin-related products. The other issue I believe is also I want to address is the function of the Sheriff's Department. I think we can do a lot better in reference to what's been happening in the last 20 years, particularly under the past administration. We have a high rate of abuse of sick time. We have individuals who actually unaccounted for, inmates who are escaping, walking off. Something just happened this past weekend where an inmate who's on a bracelet, been missing for 48 hours. Also to the recidivism rate, the repeat offender rate, people just coming back all the time. The statistics I've researched has been said by 45, 50% repeat offender rate, but talking to individuals, it's up to sometimes up to 85, 95%. So along with other issues, but these are some of the primary issues I wanted to address in the Sheriff's Department and raise the integrity and professional level up to a police agency that the Essex County citizens deserve and should expect.
Thank you. Well, you sort of answered this, but what specific changes or improvements would you consider making to the Sheriff's Department?
One, being fiscally responsible, a fiscal accountability. Funds are always in a question in reference to running any kind of agency. Agency I have worked for, we have done worked with very little money to get to attack a major issue. And we're in the times that we're in now, people just don't want to spend a lot of money. And I think fiscal being responsible will be a priority with me. Accountability and thinking outside the box, getting more community service programs involved, Salvation Army, the Rotary Club, churches, anyone to get on board to say, listen, this is just not a Sheriff's Department problem. This is a community problem. And I think, if we have many hands involved helping, the work will be light and could be efficient. I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm running and one of the things that will be addressed.
So, Paul, why do you think people should vote for you for sheriff?
Well, based off one reason why I believe is that I am the only candidate that Democratic candidate anyway, who not connected to the current administration Sheriff's Department. I think that new eyes, fresh blood, and my background, my experience, and my passion, and my dedication in itself is a reason why the people should vote for me. I have no aspirations of running for higher office. I don't have any, like I said, any aspirations for any higher office. This is the job I want to do. I believe I'm best qualified for it. And again, I've said this publicly, that you'll find no one more passionate, more dedicated in this field of drug law enforcement and in corrections than myself. And it's something that I feel that I'm prepared for, something that I don't know what buttons to push. If I don't know the answers, I know where to go to, how to make things work. A lot of times people say, well, we can't do that when it's done before and everything else. There's always a way to do something. It may not be your best option, but we want to get things done. I want to get things done and make a change.
Okay, for our last question, what else would you like to tell the folks who are watching this at home and deciding for whom to vote?
Well, I mean, we have a lot of candidates running, both Democrat, Republican, and even unenrolled. And the choices are many, which is part of our system, our voting, which is, I applaud. But really evaluate and look at who is running, the reasons for running, their background, and what they really want to accomplish. I'm a hardcore Democrat with a big D, and there's certain beliefs and principles that I will bring to the office of sheriff. One is integrity, and two is fiscal responsibility, and three, to get the job done and give the best product to the citizens of Essex County. And really, I don't know what else really what to say.
Well, I think you said enough, and we thank you very much, Paul, and wish you very good luck in the Democratic primary.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you. Thank you very much.